Okay. Yeah, it's my pleasure to moderate this conference. Again, I would like to extend my welcome to all of you here. Thank you. Yeah, my speech is going to be about the similarities between Abu Hanifa and Sayyed Qutb, the two martyrs of two different ages. Okay. After the death of Prophet Muhammad and the period of Rashidun Caliphate, Islamic history entered a new age in political system. Because of Umayyads' impious behavior as well as oppressive hereditary ruling system, they were not welcomed by the people. And no one can deny the great destruction that started with Yazid bin Muawiyah's period, who was the first king of Islamic history. Frankly speaking, the Islamic system lost its presence and great destruction started in politics in his era. Ulama living at that time were divided into two. While a group saved their lives by siding with the administration, another group preferred resistance and rebellion. To be clear, this stance is a movement that emerged after Hussein bin Ali, the grandson of the Prophet Muhammad, who was brutally killed in Karbala. His resistance to the Umayyads formed the fiqh of resistance in Islam. Abu Hanifa was one of the ulamas who fearlessly sustained this unique legacy of resistance in Umayyads and Abbasids era. Although bureaucratic position and Qadi al-Quda position were offered to them in order to provide the legitimacy to their regime, many senior ulama didn't accept their offers and refused to pledge allegiance to them. Most of them were subjected to torture and killed. By funding a Qadi al-Quda facility, Umayyads aimed to separate Islam from law and from political system. Until the Umayyads period during the Rashidun Caliphate, the ruler was the supreme religious leader, and at the same time, he was the political leaders as well. But by Umayyads period, the need for leaders who have religious feature lost its significance. The one with the stronger sword deserved to be the head of the state. After this crucial action, the ulama-state conflict turned to the one of the most endless important events during the Umayyads period, which caused to their collapse. Abbasids tried to avoid these forces, which Umayyads did, and tried to gain the approval of ulama, and mutual dependency relationship emerged between some ulama and politicians on the road of money, power, and prosperity. Obviously, Abu Hanifa was one of the ulamas who rejected to be a part of this dirty relationship and destroyed the theopolitical project of the Umayyads by opening their legitimacy to be questioned. 50 years in the Umayyad and Abbasid period, he declined every single cooperation and refused to give al-bay'ah to them for not being implementing the shura system as a law of state. Furthermore, Abu Hanifa spent his wealth to support Ahlul Bayt against Umayyads and supported their uprising by using fatwas to prove their justness. This caused him to be tortured, of course, in prison. Due to many years of torture, his body couldn't take it any longer and he died in prison. Perhaps Abu Hanifa couldn't see the collapse of the Abbasid state, but he destroyed their legitimacy and prevented them from being approved by the most people. In the long term, he was successful of his resistance. According to Abu Hanifa, three basic conditions are necessary for a coup or civil revolt to be successful. First, the existence of a just ruler who can replace the cruel ruler. Secondly, for the revolt to take place in a planned way, the chance of success must be certain. Thirdly, the coup or revolt must be for the benefit of the people. One of the most ironic historical facts of the Abbasid period was the acceptance of Qadi al-Quda position by his student Abu Yusuf. While Abu Hanifa refused this offer despite the death that awaiting him. What is more interesting is that after the death of Abu Hanifa, the Hanafi sect became the official sect of the Abbasid state, and religion became the most important instrument that ensures the legitimacy of them. Sayyid Qutb, when we look to Sayyid Qutb, who lived centuries after Abu Hanifa, he was the only one who sustained his legacy after him. He was a sociologist and one of the most significant political thinkers of his time, who bravely criticized the government for being unjust. He was the famous activist who led the mass movements of popular uprising across Egypt. He believed that Quran is the only truly Islamic source of legislation and the only arbiter in Muslims' daily life, but it has met its deathbed in Muslims' consciousness. He mentioned in his articles that ibadah, which means worship, is no longer devoted to Allah alone. It's no longer a whole of human's life. It has just turned into formalism. In terms of submission and obedience, people submit and fully obey to human gods rather than Allah. Even though people are talking keenly about Allah, but there's no place for Allah in their daily life and political life. This uncompromising stance of Qutb and describing the system as non-Islamic destroyed the image of the West for the first time in the period of King Farouk and attracted the attention of the Muslims all around the world. Hereby, he became a worldwide recognizable activist of his time. His stance and views attracted the attention of some soldiers in the army who were later called free officers, attended his meetings and conferences and asked him to support them, with his idea, of course, for the coup. His revolutionary thought accelerated the way to those free officers' revolution. Just as Abu Hanifa was defending, Qutb believed that the revolution will only come when the people get organized for it and fight for their freedom. He succeeded in this belief and played the biggest role in the liberation of Egypt in 1952. At first, all officers promised Qutb that they would implement Islamic law after the coup. But soon after realizing the close relationship of those officers with America right after the coup, Sayyid Qutb gave his resignation to the government. According to him, the British were behind the government in the past and the Americans were behind the government after the coup. He declared that cooperating with non-Muslims for political interest and following their system in politics was not accepted by Islam. He said that the system was actually the same system as it was, except that the name of government was different and the name of the leader was changed. The human order has once again replaced Allah's order, but this time with most dangerous way, by using the name of Islam and Allah itself for their non-Islamic system. It was not longer after he was arrested and imprisoned, and he brutally tortured for 15 years and was executed in 1966. This uncompromising stance of Quds and Abu Hanifa was the most important common feature of them. And the most important reason for the success of their resistance was that they were strong leaders of the civil uprising of their time. In our opinion, the most important factor in the failure of today's civil uprising in Islamic countries is the lack of genuine leader. These civil movements and uprising, which were supported in recent years by the West and America with the promise of democracy, actually led to another form of slavery and modern occupation. We think that as long as Islamic countries fall into trap of West under the name of democracy, will not be able to obtain their freedom for a long time, especially American promises, which always has bad end and frustration for Muslims. Thank you for your attention.